there, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is the second December special episode. I don't know why I said that way. I think I was going to say edition. Let's start over. Hi there, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is the second December special episode of the month. So I'm going to talk to you about some of my 2019 favorites. Favorite things. I don't know why I'm doing this either. Woo. Okay. Hi there. You know what? Before I start, I'm gonna open this beer. I've got a beer sitting here on the table because it's one of my favorites, and I'm gonna share it with you. But I got it out so that I could also drink it while I record. However, it's not until later on in my list. So I'm going to just pour it now, if you don't mind. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Can you tell what kind of beer it is just by looking at it? Do you know? Go ahead. You can guess, and then in a little while when I get to it on the list, I'll let you know if you were right. I usually pour more carefully and slowly so I don't get all this foam, but I didn't want to take forever. Since this is already a weird introduction into the video. Hi, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is the second special December episode that I'm doing, and this one is going to be my list of 2019 favorites. I think, here's my list. It's handwritten, as we've been doing lately. It's in no particular order, and I'm going to try to do it in an orderly fashion. So I'm going to be jumping around. So I have a pen so I can cross off the ones that I've already done. I think there's 19 on here. That was my goal, to do 19 of my favorites from 2019. Some of them are a little weird, but what else would you expect, right? Let's just go with it, shall we? You want to start with like the knitting favorites? Let's start there. That seems like a good place to dive into this episode, since this is usually a knitting related podcast. All right, so okay. Since I'm reading my list, I have to wear my glasses. I'm sorry. I'm old, and my eyes, the favorite things my eyes did this year was change a lot. It's loads of fun. All right, let's talk about what was my favorite knitting project. See, now on the last episode, the last special episode, I gave you a rundown or a roundup of all of my projects that I worked on and that I finished this year. But I didn't tell you which was my favorite, did I? No, I saved it for this episode. So let's go. Out of all those things that I worked on, it's hard to narrow it down to one, because there's certain components of certain projects that were really fun, and I'd say, oh, that was my favorite thing to do in this way, and blah, blah, blah. In general, though, I'm going to tell you that my Soldatna was my favorite project that I worked on for a couple of different reasons. Maybe more than a couple. We'll see. Number one, I absolutely love my color combination that I chose for this. The teal color and this wine color, those were colors that I ended up custom blending, and they turned out exactly as I had envisioned them. And then I used my silver and my sand colors, and I just think they came together great. And so I really love how it turned out color-wise. I love doing the color work in this project also because, oh my gosh, that looks so fun. I'm like wearing them way down here. I'll take them off for a second. Yeah, the color work in this project was a load of fun. I didn't know if I would really enjoy doing this color work, but I did. And it was actually also the best color work I've ever done. Like, my tension was really good. There's really no puckery areas. And lastly, it ended up being a really wearable piece for me. I've worn it so much more than I ever thought I would, because I didn't think a short-sleeved, DK weight, cropped colorwork pullover was going to be something that would fit with my style, but it turned out to be really nice. It's funny, the picture that I put in of this in my last video was not with me wearing it with the top that I said is so perfect for it. I don't actually have a picture of me wearing it with that top. I'll have to take one at some point. But yeah, it's just been a lovely project, and it's sparkly. I used my beguiled base. Can you see that? It's just so much fun. So, favorite project that I completed this year for all those reasons, and probably more that I'm not thinking about. All right, I'm gonna check that off. All right. My favorite, most used knit. Now, obviously, I don't wear that every single day, obviously. This is actually my antler cardie. This has been a long-standing favorite of mine. Okay, I gotta take a sip here. Oh, the glass is a Great Lakes Brewing Company glass, but that's not what the beer was. So that doesn't give you any hints. Okay, yeah, you've heard me talk about my antler cardigan many, many times. I do still wear it a whole lot, but my favorite, most used project from this year was my Hedge Witch shawl, which I finished. I finished it this year. It was on my list that I told you last week. When I first started knitting this project, this is also out of my yarn. This is my ridge top base, my non-superwash DK weight base. But when I first started knitting this project, I was knitting it along with the knit along that a couple of other podcasters were doing. Who was it? Nicole from The Gentle Knitter. Who was doing? I can't remember who she was doing it with now. Was it Sarah from Fibertrack or Sarah from Yarns at Yinhu? Maybe they were all involved. It's hard to tell. At any rate, I wanted to join in the knit along, and that was why I initially started knitting this. I didn't start knitting it because I thought, oh, that's a shawl I have to have. But I wanted to make it to be a part of that knit along, because I don't do knit alongs a whole lot. And then I thought, oh, it'll be a great piece to make out of my yarn, because at that point my ridge top base was pretty new still. And so I ended up making it, and I really did enjoy the process, although it did have some hiccups, and I ended up like making it not quite as big as it was supposed to be, although it's still huge, as you can see. But what I did not expect was how much I would wear it. I love this shawl. It's so squishy. At this time of year, I wrap up in it almost every single morning when I'm out in the porch room knitting or spinning in the morning. I love this shawl so much. It's just like a big hug. So it's the Hedge Witch shawl by Nat Raidwolf. Oh, the Soldatna is by... Is that Jennifer Steingast? See, back at the time when I was doing all this, I kept screwing that up. I kept saying Caitlin Hunter or Jennifer Steingast. I think one time I even tried to attribute it to Andrea Mallory. I'll put it either in the show notes or down here on the screen. I don't know. Sorry I didn't mention it earlier. But anyway, this is Nat Raidwolf. Beautiful shawl. Love it. If you want a big, squishy, happy shawl, I would highly recommend the Hedge Witch. Not the Hedwig. That's probably something else. Okay. So I've told you about that. All right. My number 3. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Just because we're talking about garments, I'm going to tell you what my favorite, most used, commercially made garment is. And it's silly, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I wear it so freaking much. And you've probably seen, I think I've worn it on the podcast several times, at least a few times. Anyway, it's this really lightweight knit cardigan that I got from Kohl's. When I was in Florida back in February, when my mom had her hip surgery. I was thinking, did she have her hip surgery or knee surgery? She had hip surgery. And I went shopping while I was down there. It's weird. We have Kohl's around here too, but I never find anything I like when I go to the Kohl's around here. Anytime I go to the Kohl's where my mom lives in Florida, though, I end up finding a bunch of clothes, and then I have to figure out how to bring them all home in my suitcase. Unless I've driven, which I usually don't. If I'm there by myself, I fly. Anyway, yeah, it's just this really nice, like, drapey, gray cardigan that I love. And I wear it a lot. And it was funny because after I brought it home and I realized how much I was wearing it, I got online and I ordered 2 more, a black one and sort of a tannish brown one. And when they came, they were not the same fabric. They were a heavier weight fabric, and not nearly as wearable just to throw on around the house and wear casually. I do wear them, but I tend to wear them like if I'm going out and I put them over top of a fancier top or something. But this one is just great for everyday wear. I love it. It was from Kohl's. It's a Sonoma sweater. But yeah, I know I've basically shown it to you in a big rolled up ball, but honestly, that's fine. I mean, it doesn't have any buttons or anything. It's just like an open front thing. And you know what? This sweater and sweaters like it are the entire reason why I will probably never just knit myself a plain lightweight cardigan. Now I do have that jukebox cardi on the needles, but that's fancier. It's got striping and color, lots of different colors and stuff. But just like a plain one color kind of sweater, I will probably never knit myself because I can buy one and I can throw it in the washer and not care what happens because it was probably not all that expensive. Okay, so that's my favorite commercial garment from this year. Let's talk about self-care items, shall we? Because knitting is kind of self-care-ish. So's beer, if you like beer. But I'm not super into a lot of cosmetics or lotions and pedicures and massages. Like, I don't do that kind of stuff. That's not really my thing. I have hand lotion that I put on every night before I go to bed, or if my hands are feeling exceptionally dry, but it's not really anything super fancy. So it's kind of interesting that I developed a favorite lip balm this year, because that's another thing. I've never used lip balms. I've never found one that I liked. I usually just used to put Vaseline on my lips. I know, those little things of Vaseline, I had them everywhere, like in my car, in my purse, whatever. But this year, when I was at Needles Up Rhinebeck, and I think I did talk about this on the podcast maybe, Tough Woolens was there, and I was vending next to them, and even if I wasn't, I would have shopped there. And I got this. This is some Tough Woolens Luxury Lip Balm, and this was the cider donut scent, which I just put on my nose. Anyway, I love this, and I bought one, and I bought one of her little, like, screw up, like, the little antiperspirant looking things, but it's mini. It's a lotion bar, but you know, you can turn the hickey and it goes up. You know what I'm talking about. I'm describing it horribly. But anyway, I bought that and this in the cider donut scent, and I realized I love this so much that I ended up getting on her website that same weekend, because she put it up on the website too for people who couldn't be at Needles Up. And I ordered like 4 more, and I've got them, again, everywhere. I have one in my purse. I have one on my nightstand. I have one in the bathroom. This is the one from the bathroom. I probably have a couple that I haven't broken into yet because I want them to last forever, because I don't know if she'll ever do this scent again. I don't know that this is one that she has in her shop all the time, but I would imagine that any of them are good because it just feels so nice on my lips. It's so luxurious and smooth and satiny. It's not sticky. It's not waxy. I'm super picky about what I put on my lips, and I absolutely adore this lip balm. Favorite. Another thing that came as a complete shock to me that it's a favorite in the self-care part of my life is nail polish I mean, I've always painted my nails occasionally, and I've almost always had my toenails painted. Like, ever since I was a teenager, there's been very few times where my toenails aren't painted, because I just keep them painted all the time. Although, interestingly enough, they are not painted right now. I don't know why I thought you needed to know that, but hey, fun fact. Anyway, earlier this year, my friend Dana from Unwind Yarn Company, I'm friends with her on Facebook also, and she was posting a whole lot about this Color Street stuff, these nail things. And I finally had to write to her. I'm like, what is this? Like, are these nail wraps? What are they? Like, I'm so intrigued because there were fun designs and things like that. And she said, no, it's dry nail polish strips. And I'm like, I don't have any idea what that is. But anyway, I decided, what the heck? On a whim, I ordered some and I tried them and I love them. I have been wearing these since, I want to say, summer, early summer maybe is when I started putting these on. This is one of the Christmas colorways. It's called You'll Be Jolly or something, like Y-U-L-E, You'll Be Jolly. I think that's what it's called. These darker ones are a different color that I just mixed and matched. But like, aren't they fun? There's plaid, and this one has snowflakes. Not that it's going to actually, I don't know. Can you see the snowflakes? They're fun snowflakes on a gold background. Anyway, my thumbs have plaid on them too. I've got this habit, or not a habit, but a routine, a self-care routine. Sunday night, I take my manicure off. And then Monday morning, I do a new manicure. It's my Monday mani. I've been doing it every Monday, almost every Monday since early June. And I have enjoyed doing this so much. I can't tell you, oh sorry, I just bumped the table, how much joy this brings to me. It's a silly thing, but I love it because I've never been a manicure person. I've never, like I said, I paint my nails occasionally, but it was never a huge big deal for me. I absolutely adore doing this. They're super easy to put on. Like the first time or two, there's a learning curve, and everybody, I think, totally messes a bunch of them up before they get the hang of it. But once you get the hang of it, they're super easy. I can do these fairly quickly. And the lovely thing about them is once you put them on, they're dry. I mean, you can like put these on, be done, and knit immediately. You cannot do that with regular nail polish, as I'm sure you know. You can't do much of anything. You can't pull up pantyhose or tights. Not that many people wear pantyhose anymore, I don't think. I don't know. Whatever. You could not do anything yarn or fiber related. I know this sounds like a commercial, and it's not. And I'm not sponsored by Dana or Color Street. Just a big fan. I really do love them so much. So, Color Street for the win. Big self-care thing. And I'll tell you a funny story. I was getting ready to do these. I was getting ready to take my last manicure off on Sunday. And my husband, walked in the bathroom and he's like, he looked, I said, oh, I'm, taking my nail polish off so I can do my mani tomorrow morning. And he's like, I know you like doing these. He's like, but where are you going? And I'm like, what are you even asking me? I have no idea what that means. He's like, well, you put them on, but you're just here most of the time. You're just here, you dye yarn, you work, like you're not going anywhere. So why are you doing your nails? And I looked at him and I'm like, it's self-care. It makes me happy. I don't have to go anywhere. And he's like, okay, it's all right. I'm like, I know it's all right. But I just thought that was such a funny perspective that he came at it from, because he doesn't usually comment on too many things like that. And then what was really funny was on Monday we ended up going out to dinner because we had to run out in the evening unexpectedly, and so we just stopped and got dinner. So I said to him, hey, I'm out somewhere, so see, it's a good thing I did my nails. I said, maybe on Mondays you just need to take me out to dinner all the time, and then I'll have a reason for having nice, pretty nails. And he's just like, okay. So self-care, nail polish, and lip balm. Yay. Let's go into consumables. Other consumables. Nail polish strips are consumable. How about coffee? I've found a favorite coffee this year. I went to, there's a lot of farmers markets around, but there's a nice one that happens on the weekends, about a half hour from me. And I try to get to that as often as I can. And one of the vendors there is Dark Side Coffee Roasters. They are local. They're actually out of that town. I think they are from Latrobe. No, they're from Ligonier. Sorry. Actually, the farmers market's in Ligonier, so I don't know why I said Latrobe. Ligonier. They're in Ligonier, Pennsylvania, which is about a half hour from me. And I have fallen in love with this particular blend. It's the Bali Blue Moon, which the beans are grown in Indonesia. And the guy, one of the proprietors, was telling me how beans from Indonesia tend to be lower in acidity, which is lovely. So the notes on this is low acidity with earthy almond and cocoa notes. And I don't know about that part, but it is definitely a low acid coffee. I never get heartburn when I drink this, and so I stock up on it. The last time I was at the farmer's market this season, I bought a whole bunch of these. And this is the last bag, which is sad. But I realized that the grocery store over in Ligonier carries this. So, actually, is it Ligonier? No, it might be the one in Latrobe. See, now I'm getting my grocery stores mixed up. There's a Giant Eagle in both places, and I think I saw this at the Latrobe Giant Eagle. So at least I can still get it. And I could probably get it directly from the roasters too. Anyway, coffee favorite for the year. Favorite beer. And this probably, I can't say is definitely new this year. Although it actually kind of is, because there is a brewery, Helltown. Helltown Brewery is in a town very close to us, just like one town over, Mount Pleasant, which we have enjoyed their Mischievous, which is a brown ale. And my husband loves that. Like if we go out and they have it on the menu, that's what he always gets. And I like it too, because I like some brown beers. But they have open tap nights, like usually on the weekends in nice weather. And you can go and you can get a growler filled up or whatever. So I did go one night. Well, I went a few different nights, but I was out one day and I went over and I got a growler filled of the Mischievous Brown for Bill. But then they have either 6-packs or 4-packs of beer that they've canned. And so I bought, not this one, this is Buffy Hazy IPA, which is why I said, can you tell what this is? You can tell it's a hazy IPA, right? Because it's hazy. It looks like orange juice almost. But the one I bought was a triple hazy IPA. Oh my gosh. It was amazing. My husband tried it and he's like, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted. He does not like hoppy beers at all. Like he likes things, no, he does not like hoppy beers at all. Like if it has any bite to it, if it's higher than like 20 IBUs, he won't drink it usually. Anyway, so I started getting into IPAs this year. And this Buffy Hazy IPA is one that I will buy fairly frequently. I like it. It's not like crazy hoppy. Like it's a moderately hoppy. And it's interesting because I don't think Helltown puts an IBU rating on their beers. I don't even know how those are calculated. International Bitterness Units is what IBA stands for. IBU, I'm sorry. But it's a really good beer. I love it. And actually, it's caused me to branch out and try a lot of other IPAs and double IPAs and occasionally the triple IPA. The hazy, I love the hazy IPAs. I don't know why. And right now, our refrigerator is like full of all of my hoppy beers that we bought one time a couple months ago. I know, you're supposed to drink beer faster than that, but it was still warm. And see, I tend to drink beer more in the warm weather than in the cool weather because I find it very refreshing when I'm super hot. But I do have to work my way through this because, like, we need room for his beer. And he keeps looking in the fridge up here at night. He's like, I have to go downstairs to get beer because like my beer is taking up all the space up here. It's a good thing we have 2 refrigerators. You should always have a basement refrigerator if you can, because it's excellent for keeping extra beer, extra pop if you are a pop or soda person, which we're not really anymore. But when my kids were younger, I always had, we had the extra fridge. And for housing your Thanksgiving turkey whenever it has to defrost. It's great. Hey, Polly! The cat is totally scratching like under the baseboards of the cabinets. All right, beer. Favorite beer. My favorite alcoholic beverage of this year, though, which is apart from the beer, I had this a couple of times when I was out places. I've never made it here at home yet, although I did look up the recipe, is a maple old-fashioned. I never had an old-fashioned before then, but I love maple. And it's funny because my husband hates anything maple too, so he won't drink it. But I had a maple old-fashioned a couple different places, and it was so good. Really, really good. And I wanted to make it for myself, and I found a recipe for it. But as it turned out, number 1, you need bourbon, and number 2, you need bitters. I didn't have either of those things in the house, and so I've never made one here at home. Although, related to the bourbon, I'm not a huge bourbon drinker. I like whiskey, but bourbon tends to be sweet, and I don't like that quite as much. However, I used to love Jim Beam Maple, which I can't find anywhere. I think they still make it, but like the stores around here don't seem to carry it. But I found Jim Beam Vanilla this year. Oh my gosh. I can go through a bottle of that in alarming quickness. So I don't buy it very often. I mean, it's not like I'm just sitting there with the bottle, but like, I have a drink at dinner time usually, and sometimes I'll have 2 when that's in the house. So I don't buy it very often, but it's really, really good. But I do now have bitters. I bought some Angostura bitters, and I don't have any bourbon. So I have to get bourbon, and then I can make myself an old-fashioned. I can't remember what else is in it now, but I think I had the other item. Is there vermouth in it? No, that's a martini. See, I don't mix fancy drinks. Like, I'm a gin and tonic or rum and coke kind of person. I know. But that's mainly what I drink if I'm drinking something. Or beer. Okay. Let's go back to fibery things. I have a new favorite fiber tool. My Classy Spindle. This is from the Classy Squid Fiber Company, and I got this earlier this year. I've showed it on the podcast several times. I have a lot of drop spindles, but this is definitely my favorite one. It spins so evenly, it's well balanced, and it's beautiful. I always thought like wooden spindles were the most beautiful things, but this is a milled aluminum spindle, and I just think it's mesmerizing. I love it. So, favorite new fiber tool. Also, kind of related to fiber, but not exactly, is my favorite accessory. And it's more my knitwear accessory rather than like, a knitting needle or stitch markers or whatever. I have a lot of those too, and I didn't even bother bringing any of those out because I don't think I could tell you what my favorite stitch marker is. I can tell you my favorite stitch marker maker recently. Well, not recently. I love Adorn It. She makes fabulous things, and I have her advent calendar that I've been enjoying like crazy. But Melia Bella of I don't remember what her Melia Bella Stitch Markers maybe is her business. I've gotten some from her this year too, and they're also lovely, and I just adore her as a person. I think she's a lovely person too. But anyway, those weren't the ones I was going to talk to you about. My favorite new fiber accessories. My favorite fiber accessories are from Birdy Parker. Okay, I'm going to see if I can put this on because I kind of had it on and then I was too hot, so I took it off. Anyway, Birdy Parker makes earrings. She does metalwork. Amazing metalwork. So these are some of my Birdy Parker earrings. These are the very first things I bought from her. I bought these at Stitches United. We were vending like right across from each other. I bought those. And then I saw her at Stitches Midwest, and I bought this, which is a bracelet that she made. It's a leather cuff with, you know, the metal on it. And then I've been wanting one of her shawl cuffs, and I finally got one. She did a sale like around Thanksgiving, and I finally got one. Check it out. Isn't it cute? I love it. And I think this is my favorite knitwear accessory. I have a lot of shawl pins, and I do love those too. But for whatever reason, this just seems so wearable. And this is that really, really, really long scarf I made. Like you can see, this is the point where it's doubled, and then I have it crossed over me, and then it's like here. I love wearing this way. I just kind of put this around the two centerpieces, and then these two just hang here, and it kind of just looks, you know, artsy or something. I don't know. But I do love that. So that's my new favorite knitwear accessory. Okay, let's move into trips, because, you know, my husband and I travel a good bit. We take vacations every year as much as we can, and we did go on 2 trips this year. We went to the Gaspé Peninsula up in Canada this fall, and then back in the spring we went and did the Blue Ridge Parkway, the lower half of the Blue Ridge Parkway, and then we did some stuff down around you know, that area of North Carolina, like the Cherokee area of North Carolina, and like going over into eastern Tennessee and that. So those were our 2 big trips. We did take some smaller, like long weekend kind of things and did things too. And then there's always travel related to my work. It's really hard to say which vacation I liked better, which one I would call my favorite, because they were both amazing in different ways. However, they were both motorcycle trips, and from that perspective, I will say that my favorite one was the Blue Ridge Parkway, because, as I said, you know, we did that area over in Cherokee. It's very mountainous, and then as you go west, we did the Tail of the Dragon, which everybody knows. If you're a motorcyclist, you've heard of Tail of the Dragon. It's a very windy, mountainous, like, hairpin curves. I forget how many hundreds of turns there are in this short area, but there's a lot of roads that are even more technically challenging than Tail of the Dragon. Tail of the Dragon just has really good promotion, very good advertising. But anyway, and then we went across the Cherhola Skyway and rode around over there. It was wonderful. I love riding my motorcycle, but I'm not into speed. Like, that's not my thing. I love mountainy, twisty, windy roads. Like, give me hairpin turns. Give me things that I have to technically really focus on. That's my, when you're driving fast, you also have to be aware of what you're doing, obviously, and know how to technically drive well. But I love the twisties. The mountain twisties, that's my thing. And so that made that trip so much fun. And it was warmer than our trip to Canada. I'm going to take this off. Speaking of being warm, the trip to Canada was amazing for so many other reasons. But yeah, experience-wise, the riding part, definitely Blue Ridge Parkway was my favorite trip that we took this year. Related, though, I will say related to our trip to Canada, I have a lot of favorites that came out of that. And number one, I'm saying this is my favorite purse, which is kind of a weird thing, but like I'm not somebody who changes purses a lot. Like, I have a purse usually, I carry it, and I carry it till it's dead, and then I get a new purse. But when we were in Canada, in Quebec, it rained a lot, but the one day when we got to Percé, it was pouring that day. And we ended up just kind of walking around and ducking in stores and stuff. And we went in this one really cool gift shop that was all artisan, handmade kind of things. And I bought this little purse. It's handmade. The leather on it, it is real leather, but it's all recycled leather. It's small, obviously. I have been carrying it nonstop, though. Now, I will say it's very challenging to put a knitting project in it. And I usually don't. I usually just carry like a project bag along with me. But I love this. Crossbody bags, like long strap bags, are my favorite to wear. And so this one is just very cool. They had bigger ones there too, but this was sort of early on in our trip and I didn't want to have to like lug around a whole lot of stuff at that point. It's called KazaK is the company, KaZak. And they are out of Quebec, and it's just a really cool purse. So that's my favorite non-knitting accessory. Let's say that. Another favorite that came out of that trip, though, is a favorite meal. And my husband had this meal at least, I want to say, once a day for probably close to a week. I had it a few times. It was very good. And it was smoked salmon and pasta. It was like this recipe where it's this creamy sauce of some type. I mean, it varied every place we had it. With salmon in it. It usually has some capers or something to give it a little bit of a bite. It was so good. Oh my gosh. Very rich, very creamy. And when we got home, I thought I have to figure out how to make that because he enjoyed it so much and I wanted to be able to like make it for him for special occasions or just occasionally, you know, for something different from our usual meals because we eat a lot of chicken. A lot of chicken and a lot of veggies. But anyway, right around Thanksgiving I bought a package of smoked salmon and I told him I was going to try to make it, and I did. I made it and it was good. It wasn't as good, and we kind of made notes as to what I can try differently the next time. So I think I'll try making that probably over the holidays. I'll try a version 2. Although my mom and her husband will be up here over the holidays. I know she won't eat it because she doesn't really like fish or seafood very much. I'll make her chicken. Anyway, that was the favorite meal. Although I will say I ate poutine. Like for as many times as he ate this salmon stuff, I ate poutine. And to the point that I got sick of poutine. I got sick of French fries. I did not eat French fries probably for a month after we got home. And usually I'm all about the French fries when we go out to eat. I couldn't eat them. I was done. All right, let's see. What else? Another thing related to that trip. Favorite unique experience that happened. I know, I told you some of these categories are going to be sort of weird. I actually have 2 that come out of that trip. Number 1 was when we were in Gaspé, like the actual town of Gaspé, and we went hiking up to some lighthouses on the way back. I think I mentioned this in the podcast. Was coming almost face to face with a bear. Yep, he was just there on the path, having a good old time, eating berries or something on the side of the path. And we stood there. I had never been that close to a bear in the wild before, and that was actually very cool. But the other really unique experience we had on that trip was on the way up. We were going through New Hampshire, and we went to the top of Mount Washington. We did not drive our bikes up. It was way too windy. They have some of the craziest weather in the world up there, and we took a van. You know, we paid to take a van up there, and I think I posted a picture in like my wrap up pictures of our trip, but it was me standing with my knitting at the very summit of Mount Washington, standing knitting in, I think the winds were, I can't remember now if they were 60 or 70 miles per hour, but they were crazy heavy. I'd never experienced winds like that. You know, it's kind of like the winds you see the weather people out in during hurricanes where they're like standing against the wind, getting blown over. It was nuts. But that was really a fun experience, getting to do that and feel what that feels like, which hopefully I'll never feel that here, like, you know. But it was neat. Okay. Another one that's kind of related to our trips, and this goes back to our Blue Ridge Parkway trip in a way, is favorite family moments. I mean, any moment that I have with members of my family are generally good, usually. I mean, sometimes not, but anyway. But favorite family moments, 2 things came out or stand out to me from this year. One is going to Florida when my mom had her hip surgery. Now, obviously, the fact that my mom had to have hip surgery isn't an excellent thing, but it was so good to be able to be there with her and help her in her recovery those first few days. And just, I don't get to spend a lot of one-on-one time with my mom anymore because she lives there, I live here, and when we see each other, we're usually, it's me and Bill down there, so we're all together. So I don't get a lot of just one-on-one time. And I did get some of that while we were together. And as much as it was terrible to see my mom, like when she first came out of surgery, because that's always very, disconcerting when you see somebody first out of surgery. They're a little out of it, and sometimes they don't look so great, they can be odd colors. But just, being with her was good. I was really glad to be able to be there, and that's always a priority for me. Family is always a priority for me, and I have to remember that because sometimes other things can get in the way of remembering that, and I'm trying to be more mindful of that moving forward. But anyway, sorry, that verged into a totally different topic, didn't it? The other favorite family moment I will say from this past year, and that was when we were on our Blue Ridge Parkway trip. I got to meet up with my half-brother, who I had not seen since I was in 4th grade. He is, a couple decades older than I am. And we just, we've been in contact off and on over the years, but I hadn't seen him. And he lived down around Cherokee, and that was a great opportunity. And we got to get together with him and his wife. And, it's hard to catch up on that many years in one evening, but it was really nice to actually get to see him in person. So that was a favorite memory from this year. Favorite concert. If you watch the podcast, you know that Bill and I go to a lot of concerts. We both love music, love live music. We have a subscription to a folk concert series that we go to every year. So those concerts are always really good. Some better than others, but they're all really pretty good artists. Or very good artists, really. Anyway, we also go to other concerts, and this year we did go to some really good ones. We saw Arlo Guthrie right before Thanksgiving. That was so much fun. We went to see Donnie Iris, who you may not know. Donnie Iris, he's more of a Pittsburgh fixture, but I think he's probably got some notoriety. I would say maybe along the East Coast more than anything. But Donnie Iris and the Cruisers, he's been around for a long time. I think he's in his 70s. I don't know, but he's a good Pittsburgh rocker. And I've seen him in concert a couple of times. He always puts on a good show. But I will say that my favorite concert, and we saw her twice this year, was Eileen Ivers. She is an Irish musician. Well, she's from the United States, but her music is Irish music. She's a fiddle player. And her family roots her parents are from Ireland. And she is just phenomenal. Her fiddling is amazing. Look her up on YouTube if you've not seen her or heard any of her music. So anyway, we were actually just at her Christmas concert last Friday night. That was a lot of fun. And next year we are going to Ireland on a musical bus tour with her. Not just us and her. Obviously there will be other people because it's going to be a full bus, but yeah, we're doing that, and I can't wait. But that was definitely, her concerts are just always super energetic, and the music is lovely, and and she's very personable. She's got a nice stage presence, so I'll say that she was our favorite, especially since we're going to Ireland with her. How about books? I was actually going to do a video, one of my special videos about all the books I read this year, but I realized it might be a little anticlimactic because I don't have any of them to actually hold up and show you because they were all audiobooks. I didn't read many physical books this year. I read parts of some books, but nothing that I can really show you. So instead what I'm going to do, I am going to put together a list of all the books that I listened to, and I will post those on my blog on the fibernymphdyeworks website. There's a blog there. I'm trying to use it more often. But if you want to see those books, you can check out there. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for this video. But I'm going to share with you at least my favorite nonfiction book, my favorite novel, and my favorite new to me author this year. So my favorite nonfiction book actually wasn't so much a book. It was actually one of the great courses, but it was an audio book. I downloaded it through Audible, and it was very long, but it was really, really good. And I may have mentioned it on the podcast around the time that I was listening to it, but it was called Food, A Cultural Culinary History by Ken Albala. It was so fascinating because he literally went from like the beginning of time on through the current day. And when I say current day, I think it was probably published around 2013. So not current day. I honestly, now I can't remember. Maybe it was a little later than that. At any rate, he looks at history through the lens of food and culinary happenings and trends. And it was so interesting to realize how tied to politics and religion food trends were, and traditions, as well as availability due to weather fluctuations. And I don't mean fluctuations day to day, but like eras of different weather events that have happened. It was interesting. When I downloaded it, that's not what I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be, here's the food that they ate this time and this time and this time. I was not expecting the whole historical background to be laced in as in-depth as it was. So if you like those kind of topics, both history and food, I would highly recommend that great course, because it was really, really interesting. My favorite novel from this year was called Mr. Rochester by Sarah Shoemaker. And if you're a Jane Eyre fan, you know who Mr. Rochester is. I've loved Jane Eyre for years, and Mr. Rochester is the male protagonist in that story. And this book was so well done, I thought. It's Mr. Rochester's story. If you remember, Jane Eyre, covers Jane Eyre's life from when she's a little girl on through adulthood and when she meets Mr. Rochester and all that stuff. But this is the tale of Mr. Rochester from when he is a little boy on through his adult life. And, then eventually towards the end, Jane Eyre comes into it. But what was so interesting is, there's things in Jane Eyre that refer back to Rochester's life prior to the story of Jane Eyre, but nothing in depth. And so this author took those bits and ran with them, essentially. And she, kind of created this whole world for Mr. Rochester. And I actually had to, contact a friend of mine who had studied, she was an English major, and I know she had studied these books in depth in college. I'm like, these facts, were these facts that were actually somewhere in Jane Eyre or somewhere else that I just don't remember? And she's like, no. So they are completely fictionalized from, well, obviously fiction, because Jane Eyre's fiction also, but it's this author's just fictional creation that just wove so neatly into the Jane Eyre story. And then even when you got to the part of the book that covered once Jane Eyre was in the story, it doesn't focus on Jane's story. It focuses still on Mr. Rochester's story of things going on with him while Jane's there, but she's sort of in the background. And again, it mirrors things that are in the actual Jane Eyre story, but you get this glimpse of what he's doing at that time. It was so interesting. Like the time where she goes to see her dying aunt, it doesn't focus on that. Like Jane Eyre focuses on that, but Mr. Rochester, that story focuses on what he does while she's away and all this stuff that's going on under the surface that you wouldn't know about in Jane Eyre because it's not in Jane Eyre. It was just so well done. I would highly recommend that, especially if you are a Jane Eyre fan. And if you're not, I think you could still enjoy the book. You just wouldn't understand some of the references as they're related to Jane Eyre. I would recommend reading both, actually. However, my favorite new to me author this year is not the author of either of those books. It is Helen Russell. Helen Russell is the author of A Year of Living Danishly, which I do think I talked about on the podcast very early this year because I ended up doing a colorway that was inspired by that book, which was 3 Hours of Sunshine, which is all they get in Denmark in the winter some days. But she wrote that book, and then she wrote a follow-up book called Leap Year, which I listened to later this year, which was about her life in Denmark after that initial year of living Danishly. And then a third book she wrote was The Atlas of Happiness, which I really enjoyed. She actually reads The Atlas of Happiness. There's another narrator who reads her other two books. But it was really fun listening to her read that. And basically it's kind of a look at different practices in different countries around the world. I think there's like 30 some that she goes into of things that make people happy or that make them as a culture happy. Like, you know, in Denmark there's hygge. And she kind of goes through what that equivalent is in different countries. It's not an exact equivalent in all countries, but she goes with it. And I thought it was very interesting because when she got to the United States, I believe it was like coziness or crafting. It was related to crafting. And how in the United States we do crafty stuff like knitting and decorating and things, and that's a warm, happy thing for us here in the United States. I never would have thought of that in that way, but I guess that's fairly true. You know, especially when you look at Pinterest and look at the things, you know, that a lot of people do, and I don't know. It was a very interesting take on that from a U.S. perspective, coming from someone who is not from the U.S. also. But anyway, she is my favorite author of the year. Let's see. I think that leaves us with the last thing, and it's business related because I thought I needed to include something there, and I decided to talk about my favorite accomplishment from this year, business related. And I could go with a couple different things. I mean, one being as I branched out and I did some bigger shows than I've ever done. Like the Stitches events were definitely bigger shows. I applied for some new shows that I hadn't done before, like the Allentown Fiber Festival and the New Jersey Sheep and Wool Festival. So that was fun to branch out and do different things in that way. But as far as actual dyeing, you know, I'm always trying to come up with new things and different things because you have to change and offer customers new stuff. And I did develop a lot of colorways that I was really happy with this year. It sold really well. That's always a good indicator. But I think my most notable achievement personally with regard to my dyeing business was my 12 Days of Christmas colorway that I came out with, because it was the first time I had ever done a 12 stripe colorway. That's probably going to sound really silly to some people because I know there's dyers out there who do like 20 and 24 stripes and stuff like that, and that's amazing. I have no idea how they do it. I have no desire to figure that out, but I was really proud of myself with my 12 stripe colorway. And I did finish my first 12 Days of Christmas sock this morning, actually. It opens up new opportunities for me to dye, you know, larger repeats, larger striping repeats. So I have ideas. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's a pretty good list of my favorites for this year. I'm sure there were other categories I could have included, and I'll probably think of them as soon as I turn the camera off. But we're going to just go with those for now. What were your favorites of this year? Like, not your favorites of the things I just talked about, but I would love to hear about what your favorites were. If you have favorites from any of these categories that I just talked about, leave them in the comments. Or even if you have your own favorite whatever of this year, I'd love to hear about it. Leave me a comment and tell me. Until the next video, I hope you're having a great December, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.